Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Lou Tambone, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
All right. And so the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we first found them. So Hillbilly over there at Three Ravens recommended Lou, said, hey, you should probably talk to this guy. And so here we are. So regardless of how this comes out, it's all Hillbilly's fault. So just remember to blame him. And with that being said, are you ready, sir? We've got the religion questions before we're allowed to proceed.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
I'm a Star Wars guy.
Okay. Is that just because it's the first thing you found, or is there a reason?
Yeah, well, not to give away my old age, but I was 7 when that movie came out. It was a seminal year for me, and I had a lot of life stuff going on. My parents were splitting up, all that stuff. So Star Wars was my escape at that time when I was a little kid, and it's been with me ever since.
Did you read any of the books that are now considered they're not canon anymore? They're just legends.
Legends, yes. I'm a big fan of Shadows of the Empire. Actually, I'm a
good one.
Yeah, I have a little shrine to it down here in my basement, and I just thought it was a really good a good segue between the movies, and I've done some writing on it, some interviews about it, and it's a really interesting project to me. It was the movie without the movie. This is what they called it, and I don't know. I love it.
So for me, it was the Republic Commando and Rogue Squadron, reading about the X-Wing pilots. For whatever reason, I always thought Porkins was hilarious. Like, he was my favorite character, and he gets like hardly any lines.
Yeah.
And so, which is kind of funny that the unofficial lore of that character was written by Mikey Mason, who does, I think they call it folk music. It's like comedy music, but it's nerdy related, and they play it at cons. Rumor is he heard somebody mocking someone else for being too large to play a particular character, so he made the song Too Fat to Troop and basically gave a middle finger to everyone. I don't know if it's true. I really ought to interview him and see if it is, but I like it so much I kind of want him, if I'm wrong, just not to tell me otherwise. Because I've seen people get into arguments like, you're not fit enough to play the Master Chief, like for Halo, and I'm like, dude, he's 7 foot tall. Nobody's tall enough either. All right, like, get off your high horse.
Well, Boba Fett was a little chunky in that last TV show, so there's that too. But that's okay. Exactly. That's okay.
But yeah, so that's the unofficial story of Porkins and how he ended up in that X-Wing.
That's great. Love it.
And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
That's an interesting one. The Wheel of Time I had read up to maybe like the, 6th book. I mean, Jordan was still alive, I think, when I caught up to him. Right. And then just these big delays between the books, and the books were just giant tomes, and really took a while to read. So I kind of gave up. So I never finished that series, and I actually never read the Game of Thrones books, to be honest, but I do love the show, so I would say Game of Thrones on that one.
When we pick the choices we do to give the guests, obviously, they can say, yes, your list sucks, no, here's a better option, but we start as a starting point with ones that are kind of across all the mediums, because like those all have the books, the TV or movie. A lot of them will have graphic novels, and so give our readers that are coming from various mediums equal value. It's really what it comes down to. And so I liked the beginning of the Game of Thrones, but some of what they did, like the historian in me, just wanted to shake them, because that's not how logistics works, and none of that would have worked in real life. I mean, I get it's fantasy, but for Game of Thrones, I never got past that.
Yeah.
The Wheel of Time, I tried to read. It is very much a product of its time as far as the voice and the writing style. I did meet Robert Jordan in real life. He was a nice guy.
Oh, nice.
But I mean, his writing, I tried. It just wasn't for me. And I mean, I don't think it's bad just because it's not for you. I think sometimes certain books resonate with certain people, and some of them, like generally speaking, you can read a book and tell what era it came out in just by the tonality of it. And his is very much a product of the 90s, I think, with the style.
Yeah, I can agree.
And then I really do like Chronicles of Narnia. I read that as a kid though, so it's been so many years. I don't think I watched the show. I think they did a show on it, right? Yeah.
It was movies, right? They did a couple.
Yeah, they did the movies.
Yeah.
The for me, the seminal historical fantasy for me, I like. Have you read any of the Chronicles of not Chronicles, the Terry Brooks's Shannara Chronicles?
Oh, the Shannara stuff. No, I've never read it. Never, but I know of it.
Yeah, it was those and David Eddings' Belgariad series that were for me like the first ones that punched me. So I got
no Tolkien then.
I mean, I read Lord of the Rings. I just read him later. I did like the first fantasy I experienced was actually the 1979 Hobbit movie. Like I wasn't
TV movie.
I watched it years later.
Nice.
I mean that it's only a couple years older than me, but I remember watching that just with a babysitter one time, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
I was given the Belgariad stuff because I got in trouble in 4th grade. I really wanted to shock the teacher. I was a voracious reader, but this was mostly shock value because I knew I wasn't supposed to. So I was reading Stephen King's, I think, Cujo, and just to mess with the teacher. And my mom found out, and she's like, sit here and read this instead. And I was hooked from there. And so I started reading more tonally appropriate for my age books just because those were so awesome, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically a young man's adventure story.
Yeah.
So, all right. Speaking of being young men, one of the crying shames of adulthood is they no longer ask you this question after a certain age, but we'll bring it back. So, sir, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Man, that's hard. You know, there's something about the pterodactyl that I've always found appealing, like just that it can fly and come at you like a hawk. You know,
very dragon-like. I always thought.
Yeah, and he's got the talons, and he can kind of swoop down. It can like grab something else and just take off. Like I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm always surprised at how little love the T-Rex gets, but for me, it was always the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops.
Yeah,
just because they looked cool.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is, when I was a little kid, Land Before Time was a thing. So I remember watching that as a kid, and some of the dinosaurs that I resonated with were the ones that were in the show. I don't think there was a T-Rex in that one. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
So did you watch Jurassic Park then, if you like dinosaurs when it came out?
Yeah. I mean, that was really watershed stuff for movies, man. That first Jurassic Park just blew everybody away. I think it blew away the folks at Lucasfilm and stuff too, who created all that animation. So yeah, that was a big deal. The new ones, I like them. I don't know that I love them, but I did like the first Jurassic Park. The second one I thought was a little weird. The third one was like, they started to get a little after a while, but that first one really, that was a big deal. I thought that was a really well made action adventure movie. And then the new Jurassic World, I think that the first one there with Chris Pratt, I think that one was pretty good.
I've watched all of them because I'm a completionist and because I like dinosaurs. I think Jurassic Park ages surprisingly well. I mean, like we could probably do green screen, blue graphics better now, but for what it is, I mean, you don't watch it and feel like, oh, this is a janky old movie, right? Like it still holds up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what makes it so memorable is that awe-inspiring first time you see the dinosaur with the scientist, like where it's like the ground is shuddering, and they try to recapture that in the future movies, and they don't do it as well because at this point it's like, okay, yeah, they're dinosaurs, we get it. Where they messed up is, have you read the actual books that Michael Crichton wrote?
No, I've never read the books.
So in the books, one of the scenes they open with is they start escaping from the island eventually, because they don't like nuke it from orbit essentially. So some of them start making their way to the mainland, so to speak. So you got one where like one of the little ankle biters ends up like attacking a little kid on a beach and that kind of stuff. And there was so much room to explore what happens when they intersect with modernity in the form of they actually come to us. And they never really touched that. They just kept it all confined on the island. And for some reason, they all thought, well, it didn't work the last 12 times, but this time we'll get it right.
Okay.
And it's they just try to repeat the first one. Did you watch the cartoons, the Camp Cretaceous?
No, never saw those.
So the Camp Cretaceous, Disney put out. I'm pretty sure it was Disney. Maybe it was Netflix, but whoever put it out, they did. So it was at the same time as Jurassic World, when everyone's retreating off the island and they're pulling back in the boats. The idea was in the background there was a camp for kids that was going to happen, like a summer camp, and they had the first group of kids there, like test riding the program, and they get forgotten about and just left behind. And it's about them surviving and trying to make it off the island, essentially.
Oh my gosh!
And it's age appropriate. I watched it with my kids, but it's still really good. Surprisingly, it's in-depth storytelling.
Okay.
Which I dig, and it kind of took. These are actual like majestic creatures, and should we really just be killing them willy-nilly? Like, it took a more preservationist approach, which you didn't really see, I think, in the other movies. Which, having grown up a Boy Scout, that kind of resonated. Leave the place better than you found it, kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, all right. So, because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it, sir?
Coffee's got to be black with a little bit of some kind of sugar in it. That's it. No cream, no nothing. Black all the way.
Okay. And do you generally pair it with anything? Favorite snack or something? Or you just
it's my morning. I can't get through the workday without it. Sometimes I'll go by the mug, but I have a carafe and I'll just make a whole pot and I'll cruise through it during the morning. Usually by about 1 o'clock, I'm good, and then maybe something like later in the day if I'm feeling it. But it's usually an early day thing for me.
So this is going to be airing in July. So obviously it's at the heat of summer. Do you do it any differently in the summer? Drink it iced or anything?
Nope. I don't understand the iced coffee concept. Like when my coffee gets cold, I throw it out. I don't want cold coffee. I want hot coffee. That's the whole point for me. I know people like it. It's a thing, but it's not for me.
I would have said that if you had asked me 6 months ago, and then I discovered the cold brew iced coffee, and it's like my whole world opened up, and I really dig it too.
Good.
And it's surprisingly low cal. Like I like lattes, so I mean some of those are okay, like iced. I used to years ago do like the frappuccino type things, but when you look at the calorie count and you realize you're basically drinking a Big Mac, and as a guy you get a certain age, you're like, I can't do that anymore.
No.
So I like the cold brew because it gives you a little bit of that like sweetness, but it's not horrible on the calories.
Okay, well that's good, man. You go with what you like. That's good.
So do you have a favorite brand? Like you do like Folgers, Maxwell House? You loyal to any specific kind?
Not really. I when I go out to get it, I make it at home. But if I have to go out, I usually get Dunkin'. That's like my thing. I've been doing that for a million years. Starbucks, I don't know. It's a little too expensive. It's a little too fancy for me. I'm a pretty simple guy. But I have a Keurig, and I make there's I forgot the brand, but it's like the macadamia nut kind of coffee. I think that's great. So I'll do that. Just mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the only coffee drinker in the house. So I have a Keurig too, just because you don't want to waste stuff. I'm with you on Starbucks. Like I'll go there for some of their mixed drinks, but their coffee itself just always tasted really burnt to me, burnt and bitter.
Yeah.
So I do dig Dunkin's. If I'm making it at home, I like the 8 o'clock brand. Their French vanilla coffee, just perfect. Just sometimes I'll add a little bit of cream to it, but I mean, that's the flavor palette just works for me.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm a coffee fan. That's tea. I don't do too much, but if I do, it's got to be some kind of flavor. Or I used to do Earl Grey a lot when I was younger, but I probably because of Star Trek. But probably. But I like peach flavored stuff, so I'll do like a peach kind of thing if I'm craving tea. But I don't do tea that much. I'm a coffee guy. I got coffee all over the place upstairs, so that's my thing.
I'll do I'm from the South, so tea should be sweetened enough sugar to hold the spoon up by itself, which I still love. We call that table wine down here. But my diet and my A1C levels probably would not like it if I drank that on a regular basis. So I'll allow myself a treat on occasion. But
Hmm.
I remember when I was in Philly going to grad school, there was Tiavana, which was sort of like the Starbucks of but for tea. They since went under, but they had one, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but it tasted like Juicy Fruit Big Red gum, or the Big Red cinnamon gum. It was so good, and I wish I could find something equivalent to that. It's like peppermint, but with like a cinnamon kick to it.
Yeah.
If I ever find something like that again, I'll do it.
Hmm.
And then one thing they put me on there, they sold German rock salt sugar, so it's instead of granular, and for whatever reason, like it melted in so perfectly
Hmm.
that I'll add that to my coffee. But you have to buy that in bulk because you can't really get that just out and about.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it melts really easy, and it's more brown sugar than white sugar as far as taste goes,
Hmm.
and it really works with some of the floral teas.
Oh, that sounds great.
So if you haven't tried it, I recommend it. But
Okay.
I do a lot of teas when I'm not feeling great because I'd rather throw that in my body than all the pharmaceuticals if I can help it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just something about that and a little bit of honey.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Sure.
um, when you do your tea, is that just straight by itself as well, or do you pair it with anything?
Yeah, I usually do that black as well. I'll put some sugar in it or some kind of sweetener. Like I had the sugar in the raw for a while. I was trying that. I don't know. I didn't like it. I'm using like some weird. I'll say weird. It's what's it? Truvia, I think it's called. It's
Yeah,
like
I know.
made.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
artificial sugar.
yeah. I'm trying to use that because I used to use a lot of Splenda in everything, but I was going through so much of it, and then you see these reports like mice are growing 6 heads and whatever, and I'm like, I need to not be doing this every day, like 6 packs of this stuff a day, right? So I looked into some alternatives, and they say that there was a stevia, and then they said that Truvia was actually kind of better, but it doesn't taste the same as the Splenda. But I'm used to it now, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, if your eyes start glowing blue and you can, fold space time, I'm just saying maybe it's worth it.
then we're in Dune, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard agave is pretty good, and there's another one that they use. Monk fruit, I think, is another substitute that's not as bad for you. It's more natural.
Okay.
But yeah, the flavor just is weird to me. Like I just couldn't
Yeah,
get
yeah,
behind it.
yeah.
I've heard people use it as a substitute when they're baking, though.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
yeah, because they say you don't really. I guess you don't taste it if you're actually cooking with it.
Mm.
But I don't do a lot of baking. I'm simple
Yeah,
guy, steak and potatoes, and call it a day.
I'm with you. Yep.
So, are you one of those ones that'll eat your steak burnt, or do you like it a little bit of like a little raw?
I don't like it rare, but I do not want it, dark either. I want it like right in that medium range. It's still got a little red in it. It's good enough. But it's not like you can't
Shoe
cut.
leather.
Yeah, I don't want it with hair on the end of it. Like not that rare.
Yeah, I like it. Like, yeah, I guess it's considered medium rare what you're describing because that's how I do mine too.
Yeah, yeah.
Although those that like it rare and just want it still bleeding and mooing at them, like they're gonna call us heretics too. So
Yeah, I can't. I don't know why. I've tried it. I just can't. I can't do it when it's so like you can barely cut through it. Like it's not good for me. I don't
yeah,
know.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I've been exploring the manly art of grilling out these past 2 years. It's been a fun journey. They
Mhm.
say you hit a certain age and you have to develop an obsession with like World War II or the grill. I chose the grill. I was already a history nerd, so the grill made sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you gotten into like the smoking the meat that some people will do?
No, I don't have. My neighbor has a smoker out there, but I never see her use it. But I've had smoked meat and all that sort of stuff. Tastes great, I don't have a problem with it. But I'm not gonna. I'm not into cooking that much. I cook because I have to.
Yeah, I've
Like,
tasted it and it's good, but I'm just like, is the good worth the effort? That I
yeah,
haven't decided yet. So
nah,
far, not enough to buy a smoker.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I know people that'll spend like days getting the perfect way they make their ribs or whatever.
Nah.
I mean, at that point, I'll just go out and buy some already cooked.
So, invite me over. I'll come eat it for you, but I'm not gonna cook it.
Right, right. I'll bring the Coke or whatever. All right. So, how did you first get into like speculative fiction, the fantasy, the sci-fi, horror, all of the things? Like, how did you first discover the umbrella that is the genre?
Well, discovering the genre is one thing. Getting into it, I think, is another. I mean, when I was young, I knew of sci-fi. I mean, there was a little thing called Starlog magazine when I was growing
Okay.
up. And to me, that was like my, there was no internet or anything like that. That was my gateway to anything science fiction. So you could read in that magazine about movies, books, people involved, authors, whatever, and you could learn a lot about sci-fi that way. But when I was little, like I was saying before, Star Wars was like a big deal to me. I didn't know what genres were at that point. So Star Wars hit me like a brick. I didn't immediately say, "Oh, that's sci-fi." I just knew it was a movie that I loved and thought it was great. And then in the news and in magazines, you hear the word sci-fi kind of talked about, and then you go, "Oh, that's what science fiction is." Okay, got it. And that was my introduction to it. So to get into writing it, I mean, to be completely honest, this is actually my first real novel, the one that I've just released. I've done anthologies before about like nonfiction sort of things about science fiction or pop culture, whatever. But I sat down to write a book, God, almost probably 7, 8 years ago, and then just decided, okay, I had a lot of things happen in life during that time that distracted me, but I said I got to get this thing done, and yeah, that was my first foray into it myself. Hope I answered your question.
How did you get into? No, it did. How did you get into publishing nonfiction about pop culture type things? That's a interesting avenue in that I've never heard anyone else have before.
Yeah, it's great. When I was, I don't know, when I started doing it, we'll say when I was in my early 40s, I had already known a few people from the internet, the beginning of the internet days, and one of them was a friend of mine named Rich Handley, and this was going back to the really early internet days, bulletin boards and things, and we met briefly through there, but then I created a Star Wars site in '95 or '96, somewhere around there, and that became quite popular. Because back, nobody seems to remember back then in the mid '90s when the internet was sort of new. There weren't a lot of sites about anything really. So like I would make a Star Wars site and I was like one of maybe 30, like there were like no, not even 30. It's probably like 10 or 15 or something. I don't know. I don't remember, but like, so I created that. And then, we sort of reached out again through email, and we always kept in touch, but we never spoke, regularly. And at one point, I had thought about, writing some stuff, and I contacted him, and I knew he had been published and he had done a whole bunch of stuff. And I had done a magazine article when episode 1 came out, that was published. And I said, maybe I should do some writing, and I contacted him, and he was like, well, I'm working on some stuff now. I don't really have any time to team up on anything. And we just kept in touch. And then eventually he needed a writer for a Planet of the Apes anthology that he was doing. And he said, I've got this one essay that needs to be written, but I don't have it assigned to anybody, and I can't get anybody to do it. Do you want to try this? So it was more about the comics. So he lent me all the comics. I read all the comics, and I did this essay for him, and we put it in that book, and that went out. And then he did a couple other books, anthologies after that. And I was involved in those, writing about Star Wars. And that's when I did the Shadows of the Empire piece and like all that kind of stuff. And eventually I said, well, you know what, I could do one of these kind of books, so I picked something. What was something I liked? Blade Runner was something that I liked a lot. So I said, maybe I'll do one of these anthologies on Blade Runner. And I asked Rich if he wanted to be involved in as like a co-editor or whatever. And he was busy doing something else. So I got another guy, Joe Bongiorno, and he helped me out. And I pitched it to a publisher, and they accepted it, and we put it out. And that started a whole team thing with me and Rich. It was after that book we started to work on. We did a Battlestar Galactica book. We did a Hellblazer book. We did, we just kind of kept going after that. The recent one we did was about the Joker. So we're always sort of working together now. And that was kind of like how I got into that, like by writing a piece and then sort of developing the confidence of saying, I could probably put one of these together myself. Like, let's do this, and directing it and editing it as opposed to just writing one essay. Right. So that was my long answer to you. Sorry.
No, it's interesting. So like the Battlestar Galactica, what kind of essays would go into something like that? Because they're not like when people think anthologies, they think short stories that are actual like fiction, right? And you're talking about a nonfiction.
Yeah. Yeah, we're no fiction at all. It's all non-fictional stuff. So it'd be like someone would cover the certain aspects of the TV shows, the 70, the old shows. Someone would cover aspects of the newer shows, the Sci-Fi Channel shows. Someone would cover like maybe about the toy collecting or things like that. We basically assemble a group of writers and we say, okay, guys, we're going to do this book. You guys want in? And then a bunch of people reply, say, yeah, we would like in. Yeah, like 10, 20 writers, whoever. All right, give me your pitches. Anything you want, and then they'll start to come in and you disseminate those assignments out, and you figure out which things overlap, which things don't, and you kind of put it together. It's like making a movie almost, but you're using non-fictional subject matter. So yeah,
nice. I've recently discovered Babylon 5, so that's been what I've been watching. Have you done one of those? Because you're hitting a lot of the classics already.
I think Rich did one. I wasn't involved in it. I think he did it with another guy. Was that Stargate? He might have done a Stargate book. I'm not sure.
Language, that's another one of my favorites.
That's one I have to sit down and watch. I've seen Babylon 5. I thought that was really cool. I did not watch any of the Stargate stuff. I should probably sit and watch that. But yeah, he's always doing these books too. But we team up as much as we can because we make a pretty good team with this stuff. So I'm very happy with the things we put out.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I know, and I remember seeing like the Science of books that they did. I remember finding one of those at the library. It was like the Science of Halo, and they started breaking down like some of the actual science behind some of the concepts that were explored. So it's always kind of been fun to look behind the curtain, so to speak, at the like franchises that you really love. So I'll have to check them out just as a nerd myself and read them, see what they got. Are they still for sale?
Yeah, everything's up on Amazon. You stick my name in there, you'll find all kinds of stuff.
Nice.
Speaking of Halo, though, what did you? I was a big Halo guy from the first game came out. I was enthralled. First Xbox, I was hooking up Xboxes together and doing networks in the house and stuff. It was great. But I followed all the games, liked all the games. I'm going to ask you a question. What did you think of the TV show? Did you watch it?
So which one? So I've watched the one that was set at the military academy. That was actual like a movie, which I really, really liked. It told the backstory of the captain of Forward Unto Dawn. I watched the cartoon series, which followed Master Chief and his team. And I really dug that one. I've watched, I can't remember what it was. I just remember it was a darker, like the filmography was a lot darker visually. I can't remember the name of it. But I haven't seen the one that's on the paywall at like Peacock or whatever, just because
show.
Paramount. I just can't afford one more subscription.
Right.
At this point, I'm like, at this point, I'm basically like recreating cable, but like 3 times the price. So something's going to give.
They got us. They got us pretty good.
Yeah, and now we pay for commercials too. Anyway,
they roped us in, and look what happened.
Did you like it? It's on my list. I want to watch it.
Yeah, I would say watch it if you can. They really did a nice job of integrating some of the game stuff, like the designs. Like when you see a warthog, it's exactly the warthog from the game. Like it's great. Like you see this really cool visual stuff. The stories and all that are a little bit different. I take it as like it's like a separate kind of. It's not supposed to be taking place in the game universe. It's like kind of like its own thing, but a lot of it is visually representative of the game. Like you'll see lots of cool stuff in that I was just smiling with a lot of it. There are a couple of subplots that I was like, all right, whatever. But every time I saw like any kind of like Covenant thing, I was just like smiling, and all the designs in the state, they would throw a sticky bomb or something. I'd be like, kind of like the Fallout show. I don't know if you watched that one.
Yeah, I did. I dug that. That's one of my favorite like franchises. Like there's my big 3 that if they asked me to write a novel in this IP, I would drop everything and do it. Fallout is one of them. I don't know if you remember the show Primeval that was back in the day. Basically, there are time anomalies that dinosaurs are wandering in and out of sometimes, which explains the cryptid sightings, including the Loch Ness. There was like 4 seasons they did set in the Europe, but mostly the UK, and then 4 in Canada. It's called Primeval New World. It didn't get nearly the love it should, but it was such dynamic storytelling, and of course dinosaurs, right? So like they had me, and it wasn't so gory that you couldn't watch it. So I remember like my kids were 12 at the time, like 12 and 10, and I watched it with them. It was a little bit scary for that age, but not so much that if you watch it in the morning and not right before bed, you were good. So yeah, I really dug that one. But Fallout is up there. I've played all of the games since Fallout 2. I've read like the manuals they had for the walkthrough of the old games, just because it's more lore, and I really dig that. And I watched was it 8 or 9 episodes of the show?
Yeah.
I can't wait for season 2. I really dug it. I think it was pretty true to the lore.
Yeah, it was its own thing.
More.
It was its own thing, but similar to like the Halo show I was talking about. It's like you just see things like, visually, and you go, "Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that!" Like it's kind of like you're pointing out stuff, but it doesn't take away from the story at all. They did their own story. It was almost like a new game, like you were watching a new Fallout game, and it had the familiar aspects all around it. You know, it was kind of neat. Like, you know, they even touched on like, you know, side missions and things. It was kind of fun.
So the Halo movie, I just did a quick Google. It was the one set at the military academy was called Forward Unto Dawn. You can actually, if you want to, dear listener, you can watch it for free on Tubi. They've got the rights to show it. Okay. The darker filmed one that I was talking about was called Halo Nightfall. When you're colorblind, sometimes the darker shows, like visually, are just harder to catch the distinctions.
Yeah.
And then Halo Legends was the cartoons.
Okay.
That animated or whatever that I thought were pretty good. And then the last one was an actual short film just called Halo Faith. It's set during the fall of Reach, which I thought was kind of a pivotal point on the timeline. So I really dig it. I've read the books. I own every Halo book that they've published. I mean, I really dig it. Although the Spartans are cool, but they're so godlike that for me, I always like the ODST because like they hit godlike levels of badassery as well, but not something that wouldn't be attainable if you just worked hard enough, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I just really dug the ODST storyline. I just feel like they didn't get enough love, and it taps into everything that was cool about Starship Troopers as well, like the drop pods, you know, feet first into hell. I'm just pissed that I didn't come up with it first. You know, like that whole concept of like, you know, basically you're jumping every time with the Grim Reaper, and that kind of mantra. I really dig it. So, if you haven't seen the Forward Unto Dawn, they actually show the Cadet Lasky is the character's name, driving the Warthog, and he has all the problems you had as a player trying to keep that thing on the straight and narrow because the ass wants to sway back and forth. And it's like, please don't roll it, because in the game you just kill your NPCs, but in the movie you literally will kill your friends, right? Which I thought was really compelling.
Okay, cool.
I recommend that show to everybody. The Forward Unto Dawn. It's really, really well done. So, all right. Well, before we talk about the book that was your first completed novel after all that nonfiction, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to jump right back into this.
Sure.
All right.
Well, hello, all you beautiful chicks and dudes of all sorts. This is Suave Rob Suarez, the bitchin' XX Daredevil star of Suave Rob's Amazing Ass-Saving Association, here with another ass-saving tip, totally free from me to you, to help you save your ass so you can live to sit another day. Now, back in the day, when dudes were dudes, this one dude, Benchmark Bob, buddy of mine, he had this little accident. He tried frying up an egg when he was totally hammered, so he washed a pan, then didn't dry it, then put a shitload of butter in it, then turned on the heat. Well, when you do that, chicks and dudes, the water makes the oil go splatzo all over your own personal face. And good old Benchmark got his bench marked, if you know what I mean. Like, when he took his apron away from his face, it looked less like a face and more like someone had stepped on a pepperoni pizza. I don't like to think about it. But that goes to show you, you know? Always dry your pans before you put oil in them, man. Especially if you're frying an egg. Want to know where I learned all this gonzo shit? I got it all done up pretty for you in Suave Rob's XX Daring Do, the first book of Suave Rob's Awesome Adventures by J. Daniel Sawyer. Come share the awesomeness with me, my brothers, 'cause you never know. The ass you save may be your own.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And man, like that narrator, he should do more because that is epic. Like, he makes me smile every time I listen to the commercial, and I know exactly what he's going to say at this point, and I still like it. So, normally we try to match like with like when it comes to commercial to the type of book, but I didn't really have a feel for what yours is. So first, what is the theme, or is there an overarching kind of genre that you would classify if you're trying to tell someone about this novel? I guess I'm asking you for like what the elevator pitch would be.
Yeah, it's a little bit of space adventure, I would say, like
Okay.
with a little bit of genetic engineering involved and things like that. And it's I wouldn't say it's such an original thing that like it's unrelatable. It involves, you know, some science in this. I like science in the science fiction sometimes. A lot of science fiction tends to be just like, you know, aliens and whatever now. But back in the earlier days of science fiction, I think it actually there was science at the root of it, and that's where the name, I guess, I'm assuming, came from. But lately, it just became all about shoot 'em ups and stuff. This is not really a shoot 'em up book. It's not one of those. It's more of an adventure-ish kind of thing. It's also about keeping things out of the hands of dangerous people. I would say that's a major point.
Okay. What was the inspiration for this story? Like, you know, he's eating bad mushrooms. I don't know, too much stevia. Like, where did you get the inspiration for this?
That's great. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it wasn't food inspired or drink inspired. It was, you know, it was one of those things where I was. This is again, we're going back years. It took me a while to write this because I was on it, such on and off, and I was sitting around. You know, I would like to write a science fiction, but you see so many things come out. Like one thing that kind of always bugs me a little bit is like when a movie comes out or even a book. I guess it's more in the movies though. Something comes out and it's just terrible. Like think of the worst science fiction movie you've ever seen. Like I don't know. People say I've never seen it, but people say like Battlefield Earth or something like that. They go, "Oh, it's just terrible," right? Not in a B movie way. It's just a bad movie, right? And you go, "Okay, somebody spent a gazillion dollars on that," you know, and there's people who can't eat, right? Like why can't I just read a book that's, you know, good, you know, like why can't I do something that's kind of good? So let me try writing something. Let me just see what happens. And I was thinking of ideas and concepts, and for some reason the what's at the heart of this thing is it's not necessarily a super weapon or something like that, like a Star Wars-ish kind of thing. It's an element, and a scientific element that is discovered, we'll say. So like back before there was a periodic table, right? Scientists were discovering elements and putting them in the periodic table, right? So this young clone girl creates by accident an element that is actually quite dangerous, and then has to now deal with, well, what do I do with this? Like how do I deal with this? Like this knowledge, like what am I supposed to do with it? But it's of course found out by the higher ups and the corporate, you know, conglomerates, and they all want this thing, and it's in her brain because she's got an electronic brain that is like a disk drive kind of thing. So they all want this thing because then they, you know, that equals power, right? So they want to try and get this thing, but she's got to try and keep it away from them. So off she goes, right? And that starts the whole adventure of the book. So it was really the creation of an element that would do what it does in the book. I don't know if I'm supposed to give stuff away or not, but like, you know, should I do that? I don't know.
It's up to you. Like we generally go as spoiler free as possible if it's
Okay.
you know, less than 40 years old, mostly because we kind of want to encourage people to support authors and buy the books and read them.
Okay. I won't say anything what it actually does, but it will just say it's pretty intense and dangerous. And her main goal and she's a clone as well. Her main goal, you could see her on the cover there with the white hair, is to keep this thing away from these militant, powerful people. So she has to try to get away, and she enlists some help along the way, and certain things happen.
So what's the story behind the cover? It's very evocative. I like it. The guy in the top right with the scarf around his face gives me some almost punk vibe. I had to do a double check. I'm like, is that a guitar? No. Okay, that's a rifle.
It's nice.
I like it. So what's the story of this art?
Well, I was looking for an artist to do a cover because you know I actually do a lot of design and web stuff for my job, but I'm not much of an artist like drawing portraits and things. So I was looking for someone to do a cover, and I was this person, Jeffrey Hayes, was recommended to me by a fellow writer named Bobby Nash, and he said, yeah, you should check this guy out. So I went to Jeff. I said, hey, and I gave him some character descriptions. I said, what can what can you do here? Because I'd seen his previous covers and they were really impressive. And he just went off to the races and was sending me like sketches of this, what you're seeing here and the characters. And I thought they were just perfect based on the book. So yeah, that's really all that happened here. I just, it was so easy, you know. I didn't have to go through 60 iterations. He just worked on it, and everything he did was gold. And I said, "Great, you know, let's do it."
Now, given that you chose to put characters on the cover, would that be fair to assume then that it's a character-driven novel?
Yeah, there is a lot of character development. I think you learn a lot about them as you go, and you know their motivations, and there are other characters besides the ones here as well. And I just think it's a lot of fun. I personally enjoy writing dialogue, like you know whether it's snarky or regular or whatever. I like dialogue, so I should probably write a script or something. But I do like interactions of people. But I wanted to, although it does have a few sci-fi tropes, and you know, it's kind of crazy if you're writing a sci-fi novel, and especially if it takes you a whole bunch of years, as you're doing that, things start to come out in the theaters and on TV that have things in it from what you're writing, right? And you're like, you know, like someone, dang, someone's gonna think I stole this, right? So you have to you alter it a little, and you try not to make it look derivative, because by the time it comes out, they might say, well, you just got that from such and such. But in the meantime, you know, hey, I actually did it before these guys did. But things were coming out like even there's like a little similarity, I think, in one of the like the Avengers, like Endgame. There's something a little bit similar in there, and I was like, oh boy, I better watch that. And then shows like The Expanse were coming out, and I thought The Expanse, The Fringe, oh my god, this is kind of like, you know, this is getting a little. I don't want people to think I'm, you know, watching other things and trying to pull from it, because that's not really what I was doing.
I mean, I think at our core, all writing is derivative in that, like, we're inspired by what we are exposed to.
Mhm.
So you could come up with almost a similar idea as what J.A. Corey, was it J.A. Corey that did The Expanse? I know it's two gentlemen that write it, but like you could almost come up with the same thing just by having been exposed to the same stuff they had, right? Like one of the things, if I ever have like unlimited free time and money, I thought would be a cool idea was to give an outline of a story and get like a couple authors to take that outline and write it. And I guarantee you, even from the same source material, you're going to get like, for however many authors you get, you'll get that many versions of a story that feels completely different.
Yeah, and it's not like you know, any like elements in the book are from those shows. It's just you see like a little similarity here and there, and you kind of go, "Oh boy, I better be careful." But you know, because you have all these years that you're writing this thing, and I mean, I remember when I was in the first draft was only like 60,000 words or something. And then I had to like do a second draft, and it was like 80 something, right? And as you're doing that, like new things are coming out, and you get inspired by something else, and you want to add a little thing. You know, it was a whole process. I think normal regular writers don't take that long to write a book. They just kind of, you know, write it in maybe a year, and then it's out, right? It's quicker. For me, it was like I had never done it on that scale before. This was 96,000 words or something like that. It was for me, that was a lot. You know, I'd never really done that before. And then to go through all the proofing and the editing, and I had proofreaders and, you know, just people helping out. I had someone do the layout. You know, it's a lot of work.
So is the imprint you see on the top left, I guess, is that your publishing house? Was it Two Jokers?
Jokers, yeah. That's actually one of my musical groups that I have. I'm also in a lot of bands. I'm a musician, so I had I still do. I have a group called the Two Jokers, and we play around here in New Jersey. And so when I was looking for some sort of imprint, 'cause I knew I was going to self-publish this through Amazon, I said, well, I'll make Two Jokers. I had Two Jokers Entertainment. I said, well, I'll make Two Jokers Publishing and Entertainment. And Jeff Hayes actually made that logo for me as well. He threw that in with with book cover for me. So yeah,
I like it.
I think he's located at Plasma Fire Graphics, I think is what it's called. Yeah.
So you said it's on Amazon. Did you take it wide, or is it like Amazon specific to like Kindle Unlimited and stuff?
Yeah, I did it through their publishing system, KDP.
Yeah, but you don't have to be exclusive. Like you could upload it to other venues too. So some of our listeners are like, oh, I only read Barnes and Nobles or Smashwords or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I just figured I would put it up there and see if there was, interest. And sold a bunch of copies, so that's good. But I have to look into where else I can put this for sure.
Okay. Is this a standalone novel, or do you expect to write more in this universe?
Well, it is a standalone novel in the aspect that you can read it from cover to cover, and it has a beginning and an end, and it makes sense. And I would hope it's fun, and I think it's fun. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in there. But I do have open ideas for a 2 and a 3, maybe a 3. I think a 2 and a 3. I've written, some outlines and stuff, and my goal was, let me put this one out, see if it does well, see if anybody's interested, see if people want to hear more. But if not, they've got the one, and it's good enough, and for me, and it was a big undertaking, so I'd want to, I want to make sure I did it a little quicker this time and not take 7 years or 8 years, whatever it was.
Yeah. Do you plan on doing audiobook for this, or is it going to just be ebook, print, and the like for now?
Yeah, it's funny that you ask. I got a friend of mine named Jeff who does a lot of audio and video work, and he contacted me on the side when he saw I put the book out. And he said, "Hey, would you be interested in an audiobook?" I said, "Yeah." And I'm not the tech guy. I'm not the, computers, of course, but I'm not the the techie person twisting the knobs on making audio books and doing all the stuff that you do. Yeah, this is great. That you can do this stuff. He's one of those guys. So he was like, well, I can maybe do the audiobook for you, and then we can, you put it up. I don't know, there's some platform you put it on, and you can, he can make $1 or $2, and I can make $1 or $2, and let's put it out there. So there may be something in the works. I know he's looking into it now. He's been asking me about character name pronunciations and things like that. So yeah, there may be.
Okay, and don't let the podcast fool you. The StreamYard makes it idiot proof, so or as we like to call it, JR proof, because I am not the most tech savvy person in the world.
Take it for what it is.
Well, I mean, I recommend that because like there used to be a lot back in the day of like podcasts that were about different nerdy sci-fi fantasy topics, but a lot of them, life happens, people move on, and so like it'd be cool to have a resurgence in those kinds of podcasts. So if you're out there and you've got something you want to talk about, man, StreamYard makes it idiot proof. It's easy peasy.
Okay, cool.
And if you reach out to your listener and you want to do your own, I'll work with you. I'll help you out, get you started. But yeah, I find it fascinating. But I came to reading mostly through short fiction. I read a lot of short stories because my little sister, my older sisters were in Girl Scouts. They called us tagalongs because I was too young for Cub Scouts, but they couldn't just leave me alone at home for a weekend. So I spent a lot of time reading like Reader's Digest short stories or stories made shorter, I should say. So like short stories have a special place in my heart. But I also listen to like a lot of podcasts because when I started deciding I was going to take my health into my own hands, I do a lot of walking, and I find distracting myself so I, don't realize how much this sucks. At 40, trying to do the kind of things I was doing in my 20s. So like for me, like I'm always game for more non-political podcasts that I can zone out to. I mean, I'll listen to the political stuff too, but at a certain point in time, you just want to rip your hair out. And I'm like, no, I need something else. So selfishly, I would love more people to make podcasts.
Yeah. Awesome.
So you mentioned you leaned into some of the tropes. So what kind of tropes did you, generically, like not derivative, but that you use when you wrote the stories? And they're there obviously because people like them, right? Like the tropes exist because they work.
Yeah, I always say that about cliches as well. It's like cliches are cliches for a reason, like they're used a lot and they work and people understand them. And the tropes are there as well. I generally did avoid a few actually on purpose. I mean, some of the tropes that you might see in here, like, the eventual creation of a super weapon that needs to be stopped. You know, there's that whole thing. There's the cat and mouse chasing kind of thing. There's the your friend with the orange scarf back there is a bit of a bounty hunter kind of guy. We call him a tracker. So that, you know, there's that aspect of it. There's also the notion that the corporations are so big and, you know, controlling, that they lose all sight of humanity, and they're just big businesses that just want power and greed, and that whole trope is in there as well. The woman in the middle here in the front in the fancy outfit, she's sort of like the lead, the head person of a giant corporation, a mega universal corporation, and she's the one that's sort of pulling the strings as far as like anything bad that's supposed to happen. I'm trying not to give stuff away. So yeah, but I did avoid a few tropes. I didn't want to have any kind of like love story or love interest. I have a really low tolerance for that kind of stuff these days. Maybe I'm just old and grumpy, but when I go see like a sci-fi movie or maybe even like an action movie or something, why does there always have to be people making out? Like I'm just like, I get like, okay, can we get away from this? So I tend to I got away from that. Like I didn't want to have any kind of love interest, love stories, sexual tension, you know, anything like that. Get rid of all that, and it focuses a little bit more on the concept of family. Like, what's a family? What's an extended family? Who makes a family? And you know, there's little hints to that. I'm trying to think of one of the other tropes I tried to avoid was the killing off of people. You're talking about, you know, Firefly before, you know, poor Wash at the end there, but killing off characters just to kill them, like just to add weight, quote unquote. Like I'm not a fan of that. You know, like every time I watch a movie, does somebody have to die? Like I don't know. Like, so I tried to avoid certain tropes like that. Like I created these characters. I like them. I don't want to kill them, you know. I don't want, at least not yet, right? I mean, like, you want to have some fun with them before you throw them off a ledge, right? So
I will say, with regard to the romance, at least when it comes to action movies, it's in there because the boys, or they want the men that are there watching it to be able to bring their wives or girlfriends or whatever, and so they want to give, you know, throw a bone to the ladies that are there, you know, probably to humor the male in their life. I think in books, like if it feels organic to the story and it has something to do with the larger plot, I don't mind. But when it feels like it's just added so they can say they added it, like they you know, they threw all the different tropes in a bag and they pulled out some and they just inserted them because, like, then I'm with you, like, bah humbug, get off my lawn. But it has to feel organic and like it's there for a reason.
Right. It's not for like there's formulas for these books and movies lately, and I can see them even in music. People put out songs and it's just formula. It's like they're just spitting out the same stuff. So I tried to not do the formula. I thought the love stories that are in these movies and books and things lately is very formula. It's like, well, we have to have this, we have to have that, we have to have the love story, we have to have someone die, you know, and they kind of check these boxes. And I was trying to uncheck a few of those boxes with this book. I don't think I unchecked them all, but you got to have something in there that's interesting.
Absolutely. Right? For me, like you mentioned the Wash death, like the reason I've been to war. I know sometimes people die just wrong place, right time, right? Sure. Like, and it's there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like, we lost a guy defending a cargo load and we found out later it was bubble wrap and office chairs. Like, I get it. Life sucks. But when you're going to do it in fiction, right? Like, if you're going to kill Wash, make it mean something. Have him die saving everyone else. Because he had that love story with his wife that was on the ship. And have him just randomly die because they crashed. Like, that just, to me, it felt like you cheated him out of something that could have been powerful. Yeah. Like, if they had made that, like, I can hold it, like, you know, the run on the Death Star, part of why people remember Porkins is because he died trying to do something great. Like, I can hold it, right? Let me do this. Not because he tripped and fell and oops, I got eaten by a dragon, right? Like, if you're gonna kill someone, make it matter. Like, I get secondary characters, you know, unnamed stormtrooper here, like, those die, don't bother me, right? But if I'm gonna invest my time and emotions into someone and you're gonna kill them, make it mean something.
Yeah, I don't get why, like, you know, you got your Joss Whedon and your J.J. Abrams and these guys, like, just like what are you doing that for? Like, what do you Like, what was the reason? Like, there was no reason to kill some of these people. Like, I didn't know. I was real guilty about The Force Awakens. Han Solo was my favorite character ever. Like, since I was a little kid, you know, I wanted to be him. And I thought when I was older, and then I saw The Force Awakens, I thought this is great, you know. And like, I just didn't think he had to die, especially like that. That was kind of junky to me. I mean, I'm over it, but like, I was not happy when I saw it.
I think
like, oh.
people like, I'm going to be so edgy that I'm going to go against all of the tropes with just like everyone else is doing. Well, like at this point in time, like to be counterculture, you almost have to be a prude and play it straight, because everybody is just, I'm going to subvert expectations, and it becomes so much so that you can almost predict it.
Yeah.
Like friends and family hate watching movies with me because I can tell them exactly what's going to happen. Never haven't seen it, haven't read the movie, haven't read the reviews. It's just so predictive. And if you consume enough content, you can start to see the patterns.
Yeah.
Like with the mystery, like, oh, they showed him that it was him, and then they were like, oh, well, now it's not him, which means we're going to circle back and it was him all along. It's predictable.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, it's the curse of consuming a lot of content and then deciding you want to analyze it like you did before you wrote, or that you want to write a novel. It's harder to be surprised.
Yep.
But then when you do get someone who surprises you, like, you treasure those moments even more.
Yeah.
Because there are very few, I think, that can surprise me anymore. So now with the character, like you talked about the clone, when you say she's a clone, does she have her own personality? Like you see with Starship Clone Wars, for instance, the cartoon, where like they were clones genetically, but personality wise, they were unique individuals. Or did you play the, clones are basically robots that have no personality? Like, both work in sci-fi, but what angle did you take?
Yeah, you're right. Both of them work, but no, they are individual people, and she's very much a strong-minded, younger, sort of teenage sort of character. The concept of the cloning in this, universe, or whatever you want to call it, is this company is developing this technology called an e-brain. It's sort of a new technology, and the e-brain can be transplanted into other bodies. So they have these husks of bodies, and they can put the e-brain into somebody and then have them be that person, but some stuff is lost, but data is in there. So like, they might have to relearn how to maybe tie a shoe or something, but like scientific data, like mathematical stuff that they've done in science, is kind of in there, so they can still get in there. And it's a way to like experiment and do things, and like, be able to take the data and take it somewhere else. But there's all kinds of questions about that, I'm sure. But it wasn't meant to be super detailed and thought out, like, to that level. It was supposed to, on the surface, just be very, how they do it in Star Trek. They go, oh, the hypercotomizer just drew a picture over there, and you go, oh, okay, and, there it is, right? Like, they're not explaining what that machine is or why it drew this picture, right? It's meant to be a little bit more fun. It's not supposed to be so dark.
No, but you don't need to explain the science to get the implications of the science, right? Like, Star Trek, for instance, since you mentioned it, they did it beautifully. I think the episode was "What is a Man?" where they talk about, is Data a human? Or, I mean, well, is he sentient or is he a machine? If he's sentient, does that mean he have rights, even though he is a machine? Like, when you explore the larger ideas, and cloning gets into that, because the way you describe the process, at some level, you've got functional immortality. If your brain can just be moving indefinitely as the body ages, and you move it to a new body, is the brain aging? That I don't know the science on, but like, it starts to get interesting questions, though. Have you read any of B.V. Larson's Undying Mercenary series?
No.
So he talks about cloning, where basically the alien machine makes a copy of your body, stores it digitally. You can get it, if you make like a certain rank and you want your body now to be the prestigious 40-year-old salt and pepper guy, so you don't look like you're 12 again or whatever, you can update your copy. But the long and the short of it is, you go fight these wars, and then when your body dies, you just print out a new one, and you're right back to wherever you were.
Yeah. That's Dune as well,
Right, but at a certain point in time, you got to express the idea, just like they did in Star Trek with like the beam me aboard stuff. Like, they've broken down your molecules and reassembled you. Are you still you? what does it mean to be you? You think you're you, but they could have also, I mean, there's rules against it in the world, but there's nothing stopping them physically from making 3 of you. Is he more you or less you? Like all of those fun ideas are what makes science fiction fun for me. Like it's almost like the old joke about the stoner sitting around a campfire. Like, wouldn't it be cool, man? Like, to me, science fiction is that without having to get high, right? Like, you could just have these cool, like, what if stories. You know, you wrap an adventure around it, but like at its core, it's exploring these deeper ideas, which I think is fun.
Yeah, it is fun. You know, and Blade Runner delves into all that stuff too, as well. You know, the whole humanity question. You know, are these replicants real or are they not? You know, are they sentient or are they not? Right. So,
and I haven't watched the original Battlestar Galactica. I've seen the remake. But like they do that with the clones in Battlestar Galactica as well. They think they're human, so are they? But they're not.
And that show was really interesting. I didn't, when it first came out, I watched the first like mini series of it, and I was like, I don't like it. But then when we were thinking about putting that book together, I was like, well, I better go watch all this, and I got hooked on it almost immediately. It was interesting, so much different than the original show, which I did love as a kid as well. But
I've seen some of the original shows when they would come on at like Nick at Night as reruns. So when I, got my first royalty check, I actually bought the box set of the original because I'm going to watch it straight through. But the box set version I bought, like it didn't have it broken down by episodes. It was just each DVD was like several hours of show. And then just, that makes it really hard if you don't have 40 hours straight to just watch, right? Like I got to sleep, I got to do other things. It's easy to say I'm on season whatever, episode whatever, not disc 4, 45 minutes and 12 seconds in, right? Like,
I've never seen that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rebuy it. I started watching Babylon 5, the same thing. I'm gonna have to buy the box set just so I can watch it. Like, if you sit to work a lot, like, you got to worry about blood clots in your leg, deep vein thrombosis, and all those things. So, like, when I watch TV, I make a point of putting my legs up and just like getting the lazy boy or whatever. So I don't want to be tied to a computer to have to watch it on some free app, right?
Yeah, you're right.
But it's definitely when I go back. I've watched the BSG reruns because they were airing that over and over again on what's that? Sci-Fi Channel, I think, did BSG.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I liked the change they made to Starbuck because, like, originally, okay, they're Playboys, whatever. Like, that's been done. But the relationship with Starbuck and the Adama family, like, it added more oomph to it when you, with the backstory of the younger brother that died, and she was his girlfriend, who, and also his pilot instructor, who, she passed because he wants to impress Daddy and she loves him. So like, we can catch up with this later. And then because she passed him, he did a mission he wasn't ready for and dies. And now her connection, like, there's so much more meaning instantly just with that backstory. Like, I'll rail against it when they change the gender or race or whatever just to check a box. Because it's just like if you're going to redo something, like, tell us a compelling story. BSG is a perfect example of nailing it the correct way.
I agree.
And so, like, I like those larger ideas. Did you ever watch New Caprica?
I did. I watched all the tie-in stuff when we were doing the book. I had to make sure I was knowledgeable on pretty much everything. So there was Caprica, and then what was the other? There was something else. They had these like TV movies. I can't remember what they were.
Yeah, Caprica was supposed to be a series. It just didn't take, so they ended it.
It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible.
Basically, Goodfellas in space. Basically, is what it was. It was a mafia story.
It was early on with the AI sort of environments and things, and I think that hadn't really been a thing yet. So it was like unfamiliar to a lot of people, like these avatars just kind of living in this other world. And then there was oh God, I can't remember who's in it. The two main guys. Isai Morales, I think, was one of them.
I think so.
They were cool, but they're, I don't know. This show didn't have the guts to it.
I think if you're a big enough fan, you'll just consume whatever. But this is also before streaming was a thing. Like, you had to DVR it and hope they didn't change the airtime or something didn't run late, or breaking news interruptions. Because for you young people, when you DVR'd it didn't record. We're gonna watch Game of Thrones. We're gonna watch the HBO channel at this time to this time when Game of Thrones normally airs. If they ever mess with the airtime, you're recording what's there at the time.
Yeah.
the show you watched. And so like Friday, I hated any show on Friday because oftentimes the football game would run late and then you miss your show. And it also makes it hard on the Nielsen ratings to like track what's popular because they don't count those as views, even though if their people are DVRing it, presumably they're going to go and watch it.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was definitely interesting time in sci-fi where you didn't have as many choices, so you took what you could get.
Yeah.
But let's get back to your story. So you've got this compelling question of the AI, the technology she creates. Do you dive into at a deeper level the AI story, not the AI, excuse me, the cloning story, or is it just sort of the backdrop?
Yeah, it is a backdrop, but there are a couple other characters you pop up who there's someone who has an assistant, and the assistant is a clone, and it's sort of dropped in casually because I was thinking my notes for the second and third book, if they were to happen, did involve clones in a stronger way, where it was more of like an uprising-ish kind of a thing, where because the clones are it's described in the book that clones anybody can order clones. This is a new universe, isn't here, so the ethics that we have here over cloning a sheep or something like that are like everybody's up in arms, right? It's like, okay, out there in this universe, like nobody's questioning this stuff. So if a planetary, I don't know, like say a company decided, well, we want to start a new factory on this desert planet over here. This is not part of the book, I'm just making this up. And we need 100,000 clones because we need to, harvest the land and build buildings and make infrastructure. They can just call this company, who is run by that woman on the cover there, and they will create 100,000 clones and sell them, and they make much money. And off they don't really, once the clones are gone, hey, you do what you want with them. You want to throw them all off a ledge and kill them, hey, that's your business. We're not responsible for that. So that's sort of the idea behind it. But then there's the regular clones that are just kind of around, and they're indistinguishable from people for the most part. It's not like they have some sort of branding on their forehead, and that's
an interesting question. If you make them clones at a certain point in time, though, like biologically they're human, they're just mass produced essentially.
Right.
Are they then? Is it then slavery if you're selling them, even though they're your product? Like it's an interesting thought.
Exactly, and that's sort of where I think future books would go, along with there's the plot of this element and what's going to happen with that, and how do we keep it out of the hands of these people. But there's also I was forward thinking, and I haven't told anybody any of this, for the next books would be sort of like, along with that plot line would be this other plot line of, how do we disrupt the big companies and corporations? Well, we start uprisings and revolutions with the cloning technology and the clones, and we get them on board and get them to start fighting for their own rights because they're people too, that kind of thing. And then that would be like a huge plot line, along with this other plot line. You have kind of two stories going, but they sort of intersect. I don't know, I haven't really thought it out fully yet. I just have some quick outlines, but we'll see if that comes to pass.
So you have on the cover, and I guess I'll throw that back up there for people to look at. You have some fighter jets, it looks like, kind of going in the bottom right. So is there a space element, like space flight, or because this actually looks like a matte painting? I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, Jeff did a great job. Some of the things on the cover he did sort of just add for fun, but there is space travel, and there's like very wide, very big galaxy area, and there's many, we go to many planets in the book. So there are spaceships, and the main guy in the middle there with the goatee, he has a ship, and he meets the clone with the white hair, Avery. They meet together near the beginning of the book, and they're sort of the team that's set off on this adventure. But there's a spaceship, there's lots of travel. Those little ships in the bottom, I think he just threw those in. There might be a little bit involved towards the end with a little bit of, not, I want to say dogfighting, but a little bit of a chase with some ships. And then he put those guys down there with the guns down there. He actually had asked my permission. He goes, I know this isn't in your book, but I thought this looked pretty cool. Can I put these little guys on the cover? And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So there, it's a little bit of bait and switch there, I guess. But the guy, his name is Staving over there. He's in the book. All the characters are in the book. But those little guys are not. But yeah, he just added in a lot of really cool looking stuff. And I thought, and he actually did a back cover that has like a hand on it, which I thought was fantastic. I really enjoyed that one too. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So as you can see, it's giving a little bit away, of course, but yeah, as you can see, the fingers are kind of disappearing as the hand is there, right? So that's a little bit of a clue of what that element is about.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover. Now, is it available in hardback like the image implies, or is that just art for ad's sake?
Yeah, I put it up in paperback, Kindle, e-reader, whatever, and then I did a hardcover as well.
Nice.
Yeah, you can get all three.
It's a glorious cover. I really do like it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So you mentioned the clone is the main character. What about your other main characters? What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so the guy in the middle, the girl with the white hair, her name's Avery, and she has like a little number attached to her name as well. Jack is the guy in the middle with the goatee, J-A-K, not J-A-C-K. His name is Jack Tasker, and he's sort of a bit of a scavenger-like guy, sort of. I envision him a little bit sort of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord kind of guy, but not some famous outlaw. He's just a guy doing his job. He's just a scavenger. So that's how he makes his money. He has a shop where he has a couple of sort of parental figures who run his shop for him while he's out doing this sort of thing. And they're involved in the story as well. They're just not on the cover. The guy on the right with the scarf, I told you, he's a what we call a tracker, which is like a bounty hunter. He's hired by the guy in the bottom right, which is Captain Staving, who works for the woman in the middle there. Her name is Shalisa Casarosa. She runs the big company who's trying to take over everything. So, and then, there's some fumbles along the way and things, loyalties switch, and lots of fun little adventures. And I had a good time doing it, to be honest. And if I wasn't having a good time, I would have never released it.
Absolutely. So did you have any cool secondary characters that you especially liked writing about?
The guy with the scarf, actually, he came in the second draft. I didn't have him there right away, so I created him, and I just had a ball with it. He's got a full on backstory in there, and he actually has a relationship with somebody, but it's not one of those things where you're seeing. There are people who are involved with people in the book, of course, but like it's not like overtly sexualized or anything like that. It's just he has a whole relationship with a woman who runs a tavern on a certain planet. He knew her father. There's like a whole story there. It's great. So I had fun saying, okay, I need a bounty hunter kind of guy, but you know what? Who is this guy? And then I wrote all this extra stuff all about him and what he does and his motivations. And it turns out to be a pretty important character in the end. So I was kind of happy about him as a secondary character. Staving down there, he's just one of the more unique things that I tried to do in this book was that the corporation is the corporation, right? It's big business, of course, but they're one of the first to have an actual military. Like, and again, to reinforce that notion of, well, what the heck does a business need with a military, right? Like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? People might start to question that. What do they need military? Now, nobody knows about it. It's kind of like an underground thing. But she creates this military branch so that she can do things like in a, unofficial capacity, I guess, almost like secret ops, I would say. But he's there. He's basically, he works for her. There's another guy, another general guy, Strago. He's Staving's boss. So there's these guys, and then there are a couple of fun little side characters. I don't want to give them all away, but there's just I tried to give everybody a good couple of moments in the book, like to have something to do. I don't like characters that sit around and do anything, right? They got to have something to do. So there's lots of groupings and adventures and stuff, and basically it's a bit of it's a chase in a sci-fi umbrella. She's trying to get away. They're trying to find her. They get some, she gets some help along the way, and that's the nutshell version of it. And I think a lot of fun things happen along the way.
So is this like, who is the bad guy, without giving spoilers, obviously, because we want, like I said, we want people to read the book, buy the book, review the book, dear listener. like who is the bad guy? What can you tell us about the antagonist without spoilers?
Yeah, I think Chaliza there on the front, and only in the way of like how a James Bond villain might think they were right, not the villain. You know what I mean? Like, you know how the villains of sometimes, you know, they think they're the hero. They don't think they're the villain. She doesn't think that she's doing anything inherently wrong. She's just the boss of some huge company, but she ends up, you know, doing a few questionable, or her military branch, will say, ends up doing a few questionable things, which she's got plausible deniability. So who cares, you know? But these guys have to do some dirty stuff to you know, to get their jobs done. So I would say they are the antagonists in that they learn about this element and they know that this girl has escaped and they're doing everything they can trying to get her back because they want to use this technology or this element, I should say, for whatever their evil purposes are, which we don't really get too much into. It's just they just want it.
Now,
we assume it's for something bad.
Are there political entities in this book as well, or is it one of the futures where businesses run everything?
Yeah, it's more like that. It's more like there's not really there's no galactic senate or anything going on here. It's kind of a, you know, business. The business is the corporation is so huge that it spans multiple, you know, the galaxy, basically multiple planets and systems and things. So everybody knows who this is, and any competition has. And there's backstory on her as well, like, and how she got to where she is. So you know, if you read all that, you'll kind of get the picture. It's just almost like someone becoming so powerful that there's just no one else to compete. You know, that's how
at a certain point in time, if you take a company and you make it big enough like that, Scott Bartlett did his Ixon prophecy universe, had basically like mega corporations ruling everything. Locally there were governments, which I'm sure, you know, you've got to, like, each town may have a mayor or whatever, but at a certain level it's the corporations controlling things. It'd be interesting to sit down with an actual economist and start looking at what that looks like, because money has value because we give it value. We give it value at one point in time because it was backed by the gold standard, then it becomes fiat currency and it's backed by we say so, trust us, bro. At a certain point in time, so, and that's the medium that, of course, the shareholders and the businesses operate. When they get so large, how does that even work? It'd be fascinating to see, like, trying to analyze some of the financial stuff in some of these sci-fi properties we all love. Like Cyberpunk would be another one of those. Blade Runner, like, how does that functionally work at that point in time?
Yeah, it's interesting to know that stuff, but then it does also sort of put a damper on the fun of it, right? It's like, I don't want to know everything, right?
I wouldn't want that in the story. And that's the nerding me on the outside of the story that I would like to know.
Tie-in materials are for, right?
Right. Like it's the game books, essentially.
Right. Exactly. The manuals, like the RPG books and stuff, like that's where all that stuff can live. And somebody's got to make all that up too, you know.
Going back to Fallout as an example, it's the books you find that you could read, or Skyrim did it if you wanted to, and you get more of the lore. But you could also just sell them and move on. You don't really need those to play the game. They kind of like that for me, is all those extra details about how stuff would work.
Yeah.
So, all right. So if your characters knew who you were Lou Tambone, who was the creator of their universe, the originator of their torment, right? And they met you in a back alley. Right. They see that interaction playing out. You gonna live?
Yeah, I'm gonna live, because I wouldn't kill them anyway. I wouldn't kill them in the first place. They would respect that. They would say, "Hey, thanks for not killing me."
They'd be like, "You're a benevolent deity. We're good." Okay, all right. Would you live in this world if you could?
I don't think so. It's very it's haphazard. It's a little bit, I don't want to say lawless. It feels lawless a little bit. Like you can go to a planet and walk around and there's shops and people just kind of run their own businesses and everybody just does their thing. So by the time a military group comes to ask questions, you know, you're like, who are these people? It's not like the police showed up. It's like the military branch of the corporation shows up and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Right. So I don't know if I'd want to live in that sort of, it feels a little bit police statey to me, but it's not, that's not explored in that depth in the book. You know, it's not like every planet is locked down and there's trouble and it's the apocalypse, you know, it's nothing like that. It's everybody's pretty content to just live on their planet, do their thing. And if there's any problems, like you said, I have like, I think I might have mentioned it quickly. There's like the local police, or we'll just clean up any disagreements. But for the most part, it's you know, I don't get into too much of that stuff.
So you said this happens in a different galaxy, so it's
Yeah.
separated from Earth. Does it?
Oh, yeah.
Does Earth exist in this paradigm, or are they like post-Earth, or just no connection to Earth?
Yeah, no connection. This is the universe to me is a big place, and that's I always say that's, and I said it I think at the end of the book somewhere. The fun about sci-fi is there are no rules. The universe is a big place. You can put a story out somewhere else, and even the laws of physics can be different. Like you could do whatever you want in your own sci-fi novel. That's awesome. When you write a book about people here on Earth, you kind of have to keep to certain things, which is okay too. But you know, you do sci-fi, all bets are off. You do whatever you want. You don't have to explain how everything was created. You don't have to explain how, you know, light speed was created and who created it and when. It's just there, you know, and you don't need to ask those questions. So that's, for me, that's freeing. That's fun. You can just do stuff at that point.
So do you have aliens in this world?
No, actually, that was another choice I had made. They were going to be, everybody was sort of human. Like, I think sometimes that gets a little exhausting when you have, aliens and you got to know species and who's what and when, and you're always trying to like pepper them in wherever you can. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to leave that alone. We'll just pretend these are all humanoid people, you know, for now.
Okay. So do you have like AI constructs as well that are sentient, or more like we would know AI now, where they're just smart machines essentially?
Yeah, there are smart machines. Like I don't talk too much about the AI stuff, but I do mention like I'll describe a building and say like there were, you know, robot cleaners going up and down cleaning the windows and stuff like that. You know, like, it's little sci-fi fun things. Like, but I don't get too much into the into AI stuff. It's really more about the characters than about the tech, I think.
Okay. So your clone, if she had a choice between coffee or tea, as we bring this puppy home, is she drinking the coffee or the tea?
She's gonna drink coffee because
Nice.
she's my creation. So,
So she's got taste, basically.
yeah. I think she actually wouldn't know. She would say like, "Well, what is this? Like coffee, tea? Like what do I do with this?" I was like, "You drink it." And then she'd probably taste them both and go, "Well, I like this one because it has more taste," which would, to me, is coffee. The tea is more always, to me, a little bit more
Watered down.
watery. Yeah.
Bean water versus leaf water. Pick bean water every time.
There you go. That's it.
So is there anything that we didn't cover about this world? We kind of went all over the place and then compared it to other properties and circled back. It was a lot of fun, but is there anything that the audience needs to know before we bring this puppy home that we didn't talk about?
That's a good question. Not that I can think of. I would hope they just go into it with a little open mind and just sort of take it for what it is. It's not, you know, Tolkien. You know, it's supposed to be just a fun story, but I want them to I would want any reader to dig into their subconscious and relate to some of these characters, because they all have relatable things about them, I think. And you know, I try to, you know, you put a little of yourself in these characters sometimes, and it's not always one character. You put a little something here, a little something there, and you know, you end up sort of being a part of all of them. There's a little something in there, like a reflection almost. And I would hope that that would translate to people who were reading it, and they could say, oh, you know, oh, well, I've thought that before. Oh, look at that, that's cool. You know, I would hope they'd have a good time reading it. I would love to hear people's feedback. I haven't really I had a few people write back saying, you know, I'm still reading it, you know, that kind of thing. But I would love to hear people's reactions and say, okay, I like that you did this, and then, you know, maybe this didn't work, or because that can only help. You know, feedback is
Absolutely.
feedback.
So
is
this is the part of the introduction. This is the part of the episode, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, and it really does matter with debut authors on their first fiction novel, novelists in general. It makes a huge difference. It tweaks the algorithms. You're telling other readers, hey, I like this, or I didn't like this. So you're speaking to the community of nerds that might read this book. So do your part, people. It really does make a difference. So with that being said, how can listeners and viewers at home find you on the wild interwebs?
Well, you can always go to my name, loutambone.com. I have everything there that you'll need. Links to all kinds of social medias and whatever else there. And if you go to Amazon, you want anything I've ever done, if you use Amazon, just put my name also in the search box. You'll come up with things that I've done, written and edited, but also things that I've just been a part of, maybe donated an essay to, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's it really. I'm pretty easy to find, find me. I'm
Absolutely.
friendly.
So you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters, our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com, for professional purposes only, people. We have our Facebook group and Facebook page. We have Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and email for all the shenanigans. She's there for it. We have our new website over there on podcaster.spotify.com, and then a whole bunch of gobbledygook. So click the link tree, click the podcast. You go there. You can support us for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, or you can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee. Podcast Grunts is the code, 10% off discount. Americans buying American-made stuff. I'm here for it, but they will drink it until their eyes turn brown and it pours out their ears, and I want to film that when that happens. So do your part, people, and we're going to make that a thing. And with that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my absentee and crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to have you back. We can get nerdy about other topics. Clearly, you're qualified.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was a blast. And with that, we're going to hit the end button, people. And